We are live.
Hello and welcome to our first Founder Hacks of 2021, our podcast where we share something we've seen, something we've read, and something we've learned that's been a source of inspiration or edification for the founders that we work with across a broad range of different businesses. Let me start by offering a very brilliant welcome and a Happy New Year to Mr. Anthony Enright.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Anthony, and an equally ebullient welcome and Happy New Year to Mr. Alex Moore.
Hello, Ben.
Oh, another word I've got to Google. Brilliant.
It's a good one, isn't it? I was quite proud of that. I've been researching over my Christmas and New Year break. Gentlemen, without further ado, let's crack into our content for this week. And I believe, Alex, you'd like to share something I think is a bit of a summary for you, isn't it, of what you've seen?
Yeah, I know we just did the Christmas thing where it was a bit of a look back in the year, but I don't know. I was having another look back at the year, which is never a bad thing to do, before I kissed it goodbye forever and never want to see it again. And I was just thinking, my scene, really, it was the remarkable people that I know who are running businesses have achieved remarkable things last year. And it still amazed me because it's a very difficult year and a lot of businesses failed. And but some of the businesses I connected to, the founders have achieved amazing things. And it just made me think, amazing. Doesn't matter what happens in a way. Amazing people always seem to do amazing things, right? And whatever the hell is going on. And I just thought, that's something I want to talk about on our podcast because it's just something, an interesting one for us to debate, I thought. So,
Alex, I mean, immediately on that, is that in spite of the pandemic or because of, do you think?
I would say in spite of. They've just managed to overcome obstacles. And these are the type of people who could overcome any obstacle, I think, anything that ever's thrown at them. And they're just remarkable people. So, does that answer your question?
I'm not sure, because I think where I was going with it was to understand, do these people generally sparkle regardless of what happened, good times, bad times, or do they actually come to the fore when there's really tricky times?
Oh, you see, that is an interesting one. Maybe it's a bit of a mix, actually.
I think it's interesting. I do sometimes wonder whether in business it's sometimes very easy to attribute things to just needing a great person or attribute it all to the person. I guess I wonder sometimes, I think that greatness can be in almost anybody. And it's a question of how, what circumstance they find themselves in that unlocks it for them. So I think probably both are true in different situations. I think I definitely have seen some people who have genuinely sparkled because of the pandemic. It's put them in a situation where they've risen to that challenge magnificently. And I've definitely seen others who have sparkled in spite of it because that's just what they do. So I think it's a mixed bag in terms of different folks and different ways that they are great. And I think it is that breadth. I've definitely been in situations where you've seen people who you'd kind of expect them to be magnificent, but actually it hasn't happened. And then other times where you've seen someone you'd expect perhaps wouldn't quite rise to the challenge, and they absolutely have. So I think we're often surprised. But I absolutely would agree that in this last year I've seen a lot of people who've just done remarkable things, and credit to them. And these are people who, in times like these, we turn to lead us through, potentially.
I think through my experience, I absolutely agree. I think everybody has the ability to be great. And my experience tells me, and I'm hesitating, but so I think that it's about environment. I think if you've got the right person, the right environment, you can see great things. And I kind of, it kind of alludes to the, I'm hesitating again because I was going to use a sporting analogy. And in the level of rugby that I've played,
Anthony, we're not allowed.
I know, not allowed. But in the level of rugby that I've played, it's not a high level of rugby. And what happens is players come and go, and then what you either go on tour to someone that's left the club and you go and visit them, or locally somebody's just left and gone to another club, and you see them in a different light because the environment's different. And they've excelled where they might not have excelled in your environment, they've excelled in another environment because, and it's hard to put your finger on it without knowing the detail, but something in that environment has enabled them to really multiply and really achieve, whereas the environment that you experienced them in didn't allow them to do that. So that's why I think where I was going initially with the question, is it in spite of or because of? Because I do think it's about the environment. I think people that don't always work out for us do have the opportunity to be excellent elsewhere. And just because somebody's failed elsewhere, it doesn't mean as we hire them that they, that they're going to fail. If we've got the right environment, and I always kind of come back to the right value set. If we're working and surrounding around people with the right values, then I think that's where we can really get that greatness.
I think values are certainly a massive thing, aren't they? And that alignment. But then, I think it is how we hold those two beliefs in our head. I think it's very important that you believe everyone has the potential to grow in what they need to be brilliant in what they're doing, and at the same time, ready to be the person sometimes who calls it out and says, actually, I don't think that you're able to do the growth in this environment that would be needed for you to be brilliant here. It's a very tough one. It's a very tough one. But I don't think it takes away from Alex's central point, which is, undoubtedly this year we've seen amazing inspirational stories. And sometimes it's those stories that can be unlocking for us, right? Being able to share those stories of how people have conquered, come through against great adversity can be the inspiration and unlock growth for others. Yeah. So maybe that's a takeaway, right?
Yeah, and we need to hear more about it, right? We don't hear enough about these unsung heroes, these great stories, in our media, and we just don't hear enough about it. And Ben, I completely agree that when I hear these stories, I find them so inspirational because they are the unsung heroes, and they're the unsung heroes for a lot of people during this pandemic, because whatever it is they've done and whatever it is they've achieved, that they're keeping people in jobs, they're keeping businesses growing, whilst there's others that are, just not in a position to be able to do that. And I'd really, so I think if anybody's got any great stories out there that they could share with us, we'd love to share them on our platform. Because I find it so motivating. I think, especially after Monday's news, where we're in further lockdown, people need those inspirational stories. It's not all doom and gloom.
How would you summarise that, Mr. Moore?
Well, it's interesting. The conversation's ended up going not where I thought it did, which is always good. But that's really struck a chord with me. That right person, the right environment. I changed school, I remember, and that was quite inspirational for me, just to change school and just be plunged into this new school where I made all these new friends and I really liked it. So I think it's the environment. That's what I'm going to take back from that. It's the environment. And and inspiring people are always good to talk about, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I think Elon Musk this year, amazing. He's just become the richest man in the world last year. The richest man in the world. Blasted people to the space station. His car company is worth more than General Motors or something. Quite amazing, isn't he? Quite people.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's great to celebrate. But I also, I have someone I know who runs a bookshop that she's kept going through all of this in the most extraordinary way, and the inventiveness and the creativity and how she's pivoted. I've just been watching from afar. I don't know if she listens to this, but it's been amazing to watch. And it's a much smaller business perhaps than Mr. Musk's, but I find that just as inspiring. Within that domain to do something so brilliant. And to keep something going that's part of a community, I also find inspiring. So I think it can come from anywhere. Yeah,
we've got our local pub who must be suffering, right? Financially, they must be suffering, but yet everything is driven to keeping the community going. So they're running food banks, they're collecting food, they're a drop-off point for unused laptops. They're doing a quiz. They're continuing their quiz every Sunday so people can come together. And it's just those hubs of communities who financially are definitely suffering, but they're not concentrating on that, concentrating on being the hub of the community. And I think there's so much to be said for that.
Nice. Well, look, on that note, talk about inspiring information. Anthony, I think you're going to talk to us on about your Red this week, which is quite an inspiring story in itself, I think.
Yeah, well, I read this, actually, it was in the Sunday papers, but I kind of read it after, again, the news of that we're entering into lockdown, and I just found it inspiring. And it's an opinion poll by a company and a survey by a company called Opinion. And they've been surveying individuals to see their appetite for their entrepreneurial spirit and whether or not they would be looking to set up their own business in the next year. And what it tells us is that 1 in 5 Britons wants to set up a new business this year. And actually, when you look at the detail behind the data, it's actually 1 in 3 between 18 and 34-year-olds.
Wow.
And I just thought, that's phenomenal, right? We're in a global pandemic. We're not out of the woods. Thankfully, we've got a vaccine. But there's people really sitting here wanting to do something positive and make a step forward. And I just think at times entrepreneur is an overused word now. But I also think entrepreneurs and founders are the unsung heroes, right? And we employ the good and the great. We employ all different types of personalities, and we create wealth for our local areas or wherever we decide to set up. I think there's so many positives about entrepreneurs, and this was just another one of seeing the world from employed people's eyes, going, that's what I want to do next. That's where I want to be. And I just thought, what a great start to the year by thinking, yeah, I don't care what's going on. I'm gonna actually put my money where my mouth is and go and start something new.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting. 1 in 5, but what's more interesting? 1 in 3 18 to 34-year-olds. That's incredible. Great, good on them. I guess my comment on this is how many of them will end up doing it. And I meet a lot of people who say, "Oh, I'd like to have my own business one day," and my answer is quite nicely back to them. So when are you going to do it? When? Yeah, why didn't you do it? Well, I haven't really thought. Someone else is doing it. That's another one. Someone else has already thought of it. I love that one. It's like, what? Oh, it just makes me really annoyed. It's like, to me, yeah, there's a lot of people who say they want to start businesses, but they never do. And they always do it. They think, I've got friends who've been telling me for 30 years they want to start a business, and they don't. They think they do, because if they were, they would be doing it. And I think that would be my, when I talk to them over a couple of beers, I'm like, just go and do it. Don't worry about, there's usually a list of reasons why someone else has thought of it, or I haven't got enough money, or I've got this to worry about. And I'm like, yeah, look, it'll be horribly hard. You've got to decide if you want to do it. And it's never going to work out as you thought it's going to work out. And, it might even morph into something else. But, just go and do it. But how many of these will? Ben, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's so funny. I'm reminded, actually, I'm sure I've shared it before with you guys, that wonderful quote from that writer who was asked on a chat show, kind of, what would your advice be to inspiring writers? He said, well, pick up a pen. It kind of comes to that point, doesn't it? I mean, that said, I wouldn't be surprised if we did see more people doing it and taking that plunge. In many ways, I think the decision to become a founder is almost indistinguishable from stupidity, because it is always and without exception far easier to think of reasons not to do it than reasons to do it. And in many ways, the decision to do it requires you to let go of or abandon your reason, your rationality, because we know that there is always going to be many more rational reasons not to start something new than to start something new. So I wonder if what perhaps people have experienced in this last dreadfully difficult year, whether that's about COVID or about all the political instability and the way that has buffeted people in their careers, in their daily lives, maybe people are beginning to realize the sort of spectre of stability, the illusion of stability of having the nice, safe job isn't perhaps as substantial as it once was. So therefore taking that risk to do something for yourself, maybe that doesn't feel like so much of a risk anymore. You know, we've been assaulted by so much instability. Maybe it's okay, and maybe that's one of the things that will happen as a consequence of going through this pandemic. I think we were discussing recently, weren't we, that this often happens after people go through a tough time, is you have this burst of energy and enthusiasm and creativity, and maybe that's the green shoots of this. It's exciting to think that 30% of young people are looking to do something for themselves. But let's bring in Anthony. I'm sure he's got a lot to say.
Yeah, well, because there's going to be new opportunity now, isn't there? There's going to be opportunity for young thinkers to come along, and you know, you think about the high street. The high street has to evolve and change now, doesn't it? And so, thinking about people that have got those ideas, I just think it's wonderfully exciting to be able to look at that and go, there is opportunity. There's always opportunity when we have a down time and a down moment. There's opportunities that come from it. And it's who's going to be out there making those opportunities. You know, you don't just get huge organizations, do you? They don't just pop up. They start from somebody sitting in their bedroom or, you know, going for a walk and thinking that I should do this and having the courage to be able to go and do it. And I just think, you know, it's really exciting to think about those individuals that have got those ideas, that are going to be thinking differently about how things are done. So they can actually change things and improve, you know, either our quality of life or the way that we do certain things. So I just think there's huge opportunity out there. And I think if anybody's listening, you know, and you're thinking of doing it, just speak to people like us and that have done it. I'm not saying speak to us, we're more than happy to speak to us, but you know, get experience shares from people that have done it.
Yeah,
because there are some things and experiences that we've all had in setting up businesses that we wouldn't look to repeat again, and try and use some of that experience from people so that actually you've got a better opportunity to succeed as you go through this. And
people will give it, right? That's the other thing I think I'd share with anybody just who's got that, who is considering, if you're serious about it, if you really want to do it, I'd almost bet my bottom dollar that anybody who has done it will be delighted to share with you what that was like and what they learned. And because people are generous. I mean, people who founders, in my experience at least, are generally very generous and love the inspiration. Especially, I mean, seeing a lot of younger people now with businesses that are sort of a triple win. They're great businesses. They're doing something that's good in the world. That sort of values-based businesses that yes, are businesses and are good and quality businesses, but also have that positive impact, I think is super exciting.
For me, guys, it's that, I do totally agree. Ask somebody who has set up a business if you're thinking about it. But I don't think you should ask anyone if you should do it. Ask them how to do it, because this is a very personal question. And look, if you do have 2 kids and you've got a mortgage and you set up a business and you put your house on the line and the business fails and you lose your house and you lose your marriage and the kids never speak to you again, it's, that's really tough, but you are putting everything on the line. And I don't think anyone should ever try and talk. I would never try and talk anyone into it. I'd just go, why aren't you doing it then? If you say
I tend to try and talk them out of it, actually. That's usually my first response.
And I think, if you're going to ask people how they've done it, but don't ask them to, if you're on the edge of making a decision, don't ask them if they think you should do it, because that's not fair, and that's a decision for you to make inside your own heart and brain. So that's my thought. What do you think? Do you want to sum that one up, Mr. Enright?
Yeah, well, there was the kind of cynical response at the beginning, Mr. Moore.
I do that, don't I? I do that.
But I think it's true. That wouldn't it be great if the same people were surveyed in a year's time to see actually how many do it? And I actually get that. But even if just a small number of those take them up, to Ben's point, just pick up a pen, just start and see what comes of it. And I think that would be my final piece, is just, you don't have to these days go all in. And actually the article does talk about people continuing to do their full-time job whilst they look to,
it's a clever way
to
of
set
doing
something
it.
Up. Yeah, you don't have to draw that line so much anymore, because of the way that businesses are run now, being online, etc. You don't have to put everything on the line, but experience would tell me at some point you will, if you get those seeds of success, at some point you won't be able to continue to do both. But you don't necessarily have to hand your notice in tomorrow and start the following day. You can check it out, you can test it, you can see what works, what doesn't work in the evenings, at weekends, and give yourself the best opportunity to succeed.
Nice. Wise words.
And on that note, we're moving on to our learned, and over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Anne. It kind of feels quite appropriate given what we've shared. We've talked about seeing people sparkle. We've talked about what it takes for people to take the plunge, and I guess this is something that for me feels really important right now. If you are someone who has taken the plunge, and it's been a learn for me, I guess, reflected on the year a bit like Alex, and it was actually inspired by a song by a singer called William DeVaughn, which is called "Be Thankful for What You've Got," and I commend it to you both and to everybody listening. It's a great tune, but what it reminded me of is that, look, 2020 was a tough year. We know that it was a tough old year. We're now, as we sit here recording this, we're about a week and a half into 2021. It sort of feels like 2021 turned to 2020 and said, "Hold my beer," and it's having a good go at us already. We've already seen some extraordinary, quite frightening stuff happening in 2021. We're not out of the woods yet. So look, we know we're confronting more tough times ahead. And I think it's very easy when you are a founder that your attention will naturally get drawn to what is wrong. If you're a founder, certainly in my own experience, our attention is naturally drawn to what's wrong, what's difficult, what's challenging, what may frighten us. We're scanning the horizon ahead and we're looking for the icebergs. And we are also human beings, and that can be really draining. It can be very draining when you're only paying attention to what is wrong and what is bad. And a learn for me this last year actually has been, I have to make some conscious decisions every now and again to pay attention for what I've got, to pay attention to what is positive about my business and about life in general, and be thankful for that. But the only way it happens is through conscious choice. Actually, I feel for many founders, the only way that happens if they make a conscious choice to do so. It's very easy to stay stuck in that place of only paying attention to the negative. It's easy to become negative, for your team to see you as someone who is negative. So I guess for me, my learn is, let's remember to be thankful for what we've got, and let's make a conscious choice every now and again to make sure we pay attention to what is good, what is positive, and what signs there are that we're going to succeed and that our business is going to be great, and that we can be grateful for those aspects of it that serve that. So it's an interesting learn, inspired by William DeVaughn. Mr. Moore, what do you reckon?
I like your learns, Ben.
Hey,
let's go.
Are you thankful for what you
take us on a? I'm thankful for your words of wisdom, Ben Thomas.
Very kind.
Yeah, no, I like this a lot, and it's funny how learns can come from all over the place. Just a song that pops in your head. It's great. It's great if you're open to these things. And I remember my years of living in Japan. And I was I had a part-time job teaching English. I never particularly enjoyed it. And I had this sheet, and I was just foster conversation with very guarded Japanese people who often didn't speak very good English. It was just a way to try and get them to speak and come out of their comfort zone. And the first question at the top was, "What's the secret of happiness?" And I've asked that question to everyone. Was like, "What's the secret of happiness?" And I just kept asking these questions to these people. And some really boring, what they call salarymen, and very conservative. And I underestimated this guy because he gave me the most interesting answer. He said, "Alex-san, appreciation." And I just thought, that's it. It's one word. That's it. I've asked all these people, and I think, yes, the appreciation of what you have. It doesn't matter what you have, but if you appreciate that. And I think, as you're absolutely right, Ben, as founder of a business, I was always the one fear was a massive motivator for me, running my last business. And I was always looking for the icebergs. And that was my default. If everything's working fine, I'm not going to second guess. I'm only going to focus on things that are broken or not working. But it did create a sense of paranoia. It did create a sense of fear. It was actually, for a while, it was very useful to me.
I agree. That's what. Don't get me wrong. I think it's critically important that you do that. You've got to see the icebergs coming, but you got to balance it, right?
You do, and then maybe I would say a little bit more. And I think staying sane as a founder during these is really, really hard. Something you've got to have that smiley face, and everything's okay. How are you today? You go, yeah, I'm absolutely great. And inside, it's like, it's the worst day of my life. I can't pay everyone next week, but anyway, yeah, everything's fine. It's great. Yeah, how are you doing? And I don't know, a little bit more of appreciation, Ben. I absolutely just going, and I think could not agree more. Anthony?
The timing of this is interesting for me because, it's the first week and a bit back in January. And, a lot of us, I know personally, I have suffered, from the January blues. You have this, Christmas wasn't quite what we all expected, but it's still that time where a lot of people put their laptops away, put their work away, and just have some R&R. So, and coming back into the new year, especially with what we've been greeted with a further lockdown, can be incredibly difficult. And it's so easy, I think, at times to get caught up in the negativity. And as a leader, if you're caught up in that negativity and people see you with that negativity, it's really hard to turn that around. People can, they will mimic a lot of what you're doing. And I think it's a real issue at the moment, given where we are. We speak every now and again about mental health. So not only about the appreciation, because that is something that I certainly now do, but I think it's also acceptance. I think when you can accept what's going on around you, and just know what are the things you can change and can be in control of, and accept those that you can't. I think for me that can also be quite empowering. And about 18 months ago, I was talking to somebody, and it seemed to be the vogue thing at the time was to stop looking and stop watching the news. And I thought, there's no way, sort of being a founder, being an entrepreneur, there's no way I can stop looking at the news and know what's going on in the world. But actually, as you both know, for the last 12 months or so, I've actually stopped watching the news, and I have a real aversion to either hearing the news or seeing the news on the television. I have to leave the room if it's on, because I just find it so negative. And that's been had a huge positive impact on me to be writing down what I'm grateful for and writing down what it is I want to achieve. So anytime I'm feeling a little bit low, and there are those times I can just go, I look at those things, I remind myself. And the other thing I do is, if I'm ever feeling really quite negative and I want to get into that positive mindset, I just pick up the phone and speak to somebody, either a friend, potentially one of you two, and just pick up the phone or go to a call and go to that next call. And as soon as you get into that mind, it's much easier to become more positive. So for me, it's about acceptance and appreciation, but also you've got to take control of it for yourself, in my experience.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. I mean, I must admit, I'm a bit of a news addict, although I fear the instinct that drives that is similar to the one that makes you rubberneck at a car crash at the moment. It's sort of irresistibly dramatic.
Yeah, especially this week, my God.
Especially, this past week has been quite extraordinary. But I love that, and that acceptance, I think, is absolutely critical. But also what you said at the end there in terms of that conscious choice, I think, is such the key point here. You've got to choose to, because our instincts might not serve us well here. Our instincts will be for the negative. But gents, I think we're at time. So wow, what a powerful conversation.
All over the place, didn't we? Try and summarise that one, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, I will endeavour to do so, Mr. Moore. And what I would say was that, can we pay attention to those shiny people when we see them? Can we take inspiration from their stories and spray them amongst the people that we work with? Because every one of those stories can be a source of inspiration for someone else, and maybe we can find greatness anywhere. Given that a third of people are looking to start a business under the age of 34, I think it was, how many of them can pick up the pen? And if that is you, can you find somebody who could perhaps Not tell you whether you should, but maybe they can help you work out how to take the plunge and do something extraordinary for yourself. And finally, we may be drawn to the negative. We may have that same instinct as me to rubberneck at the disasters as they befall us, and doubtless they will. But at the same time, can we balance that by choosing to pay attention to what is positive and do so with an eye of appreciation and acceptance, maintaining balance and leading our teams through whatever the world may throw at us next. So on that note, folks, thank you very much indeed for listening. And as ever, please remember, if you have any stories to share, if you'd like to even participate on Founder Hacks, if you're a founder and would like to come and be a guest, please do drop us a line at hello@atomics.co.uk. It remains simply to say an enormous thank you as ever to Mr. Anthony Enright.
Thank you.
And an equally enormous thank you to Mr. Alex Moore.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for listening.
I've been Ben Thomas. This has been Founder Hacks, and thank you very much indeed for listening.